Skarsgård was so much better all the way. Was not faithful to the Skarsgård. Pennywise is daddy.
Oh, come on, you rely on terrible
Skarsgård all the way. Skarsgård is a god.
Fucking nerd.
Skarsgård. Guys, it's been really slow this year. I mean, there's nothing really that big coming out in the month of September. We have, like, Hustlers, the movie where Jennifer Lopez acts like a whore. I mean, what else is new?
Hey,
no, that's out of line.
You gotta stop that.
That's mean-spirited, honestly.
But we could see the Angry Birds movie too.
What about The Fanatic with John Travolta?
Yeah, we can see The Fanatic.
I just wanted an autograph! Wait! Do you mind?
But besides those movies, there's nothing really coming out in the month of September, right? I mean, there's nothing really big coming out.
I think there is.
Yeah.
I guess
there's something that it is coming out.
It's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
It is a big deal.
You're right. We have yet another Stephen King movie coming out in the month of September. Thankfully, we're not getting another version of Carrie because we've already talked about that, and I think that there have been enough versions of Carrie, especially the one with John Travolta, where John Travolta plays a douchebag, but then again, what else is new? But in all seriousness, today, before the It Chapter 2 review, we're going to be talking about the 2017 adaptation of It.
Adaptation of what?
Who's on first?
What's on second?
I don't know. Who?
Third base.
When you're a kid, you think the universe revolves around you. You think that you'll always be protected and cared for. Then, one day, you realize that's not true.
So the 2017 version of It, this was a project that before its release had actually been in the works for some time. Brian, wasn't it originally supposed to be directed by Cary Fukunaga?
It was.
And he was the creator of which television show again?
He didn't create it, he directed every single episode of the first season of True Detective.
Okay. So the original version of It was supposed to be very gritty, very disturbing and dark, and it wasn't going to pull any punches because, if you've seen True Detective, it is a very disturbing and realistic show with tons of realistic violence.
It is definitely very dark and lurid and unsettling, to say the least.
And originally...
The second season, for reasons that were unintended, but...
And originally, it wasn't supposed to be Bill Skarsgård in the role Pennywise, it was actually supposed to be Will Poulter.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Can you guys...
No.
What do you guys think about that?
I don't see it, to be honest. Will Poulter's a good actor, but I don't see it.
I'm not saying no to him being a good actor. It's just I don't think he would be able to do justice.
Right, and if you look at the original concept art, honestly, it's very grungy, like the design of Pennywise. It's like taking the Tim Curry version of Pennywise, but just making it much more heavy metal. Like, the makeup was almost melted, like, on his face. Like, the hair was much more, like, unkempt.
So is this going to be what we've joked about before, the equivalent of Jared Leto Pennywise?
Yeah, it was pretty much the gangsta Pennywise. But, okay, before we get into this
Juggalo Pennywise.
Let me just say that me and Brian have joked about this before. But with It Chapter 2 taking place in 2016, decades after the 1989 setting in the original, we joked that they would modernize Pennywise into Chapter 2, that they would give him like the cornrows and like the
damaged tattoo on the forehead,
the gold teeth. He would be a much more hip and modern Pennywise, like, oh, I'm coming for your toys, boys.
He'd be Krusty the Clown.
He pretty much would be.
There's just some things you can't do.
Yeah, but thankfully, from watching the trailers for It Chapter 2, it doesn't look like they're going that direction. We're getting Pennywise as he should be. But yes, this 2017 version was in the works for a while. Eventually, it was picked up by director Andy Muschietti, who only had one feature before this. He did the 2013 film Mama. Did any of you guys see Mama?
I never did, but I want to.
The one with
The 2017?
No, there was a movie in Mama called it. There was a movie in 2013
That's the
called
one
No, she's
with
thinking of Mother.
girls that was raised out in the wilderness by some
I've
kind
seen
of
that one.
creepy ghost
with
thing.
Jessica Chastain.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It wasn't the greatest movie in the world. It was much more of a fairy tale than anything, but there were some creepy atmospheric shots in it. And it had some terrific performances by Jessica Chastain and Jamie Lannister's actor, who I can never pronounce that guy's name.
Nikolai Coster-Waldau, I think it is.
But regardless to say, fans were a little bit on the fence when he was hired as director because Mama was considered decent by most of the horror community.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as the first trailer for the 2017 It came out, it had some gorgeous cinematography, it had some creepy moments. We got some minor glimpses of Pennywise, and fans started to get more excited. And I remember seeing the trailer for the first time and just getting like really just like hyped.
Oh no, I remember like social media was like nuts for a couple days when the trailer first dropped, and I'll be completely honest because I never read the book prior. I knew very little about the story. I was a bit surprised at just the reception this one was getting. I'm like, wow, dang, people are really anticipating this movie. I was a little confused, to be honest, but even though I thought the trailers looked good for it, they did intrigue me.
Well, if you're a fan of the book, and I've read that book several times, it's a great book. You end up really wanting to see those characters brought to life, and Stephen King adaptations have been so hit and miss. Sometimes you get a hit, like the original It.
And sometimes you get a miss, like Graveyard Shift, with Brad Dourif in one of the most batshit insane performances I've
Let's
ever
be real
seen.
here. Best Stephen King adaptation is Shawshank Redemption.
I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah, that was a good one.
It was a really good one.
My grandfather thinks this town is cursed. That all the bad things that happen in this town are because of one thing. An evil thing.
So this movie came out and it got great reviews. People were saying that it was one of the best Stephen King adaptations ever made.
And
so, initial thoughts on the 2017 movie. As someone who read the book, and actually the book is my favorite Stephen King work, I thought it was mostly a terrific adaptation. I respected the changes they made. Going down the line, Thor, what were your initial thoughts on the movie?
I really liked it. I had a lot of expectations for Bill Skarsgård doing Pennywise. Pennywise has always been a very iconic character, and going up against Tim Curry, who has always been one of my favorite actors. He knows how to use makeup and prosthetics to his advantage. He was also the Lord of Darkness in Legend, and that is again another very iconic role that he disappears into the character. And it's very, very hard for a lot of actors to do that.
Tim Curry is smashing.
He is. The thing is that if you watch it in... I'm sorry,
I will never get tired of making that joke.
That's okay, but if you watch him in Clue, and then you watch Legend, and you see him in Clue and you see him in Legend, it's like you wouldn't know that it was the same person.
Weren't those the exact two movies we did that Tim Curry marathon with?
We did that with those two movies, but when you saw him in those two roles, they were completely different. So this Bill Skarsgård, I was cautiously optimistic because it takes a certain type of actor to be able to handle the prosthetics, the makeup, and still make that character come to life.
Kim, what were your thoughts after seeing it for the first time?
I'm not gonna lie, the first time I saw it, I didn't like it. But
Oh,
that was only because...
that'd be fighting words, but continue.
That was only because I had such high expectations for it, and because I absolutely loved the original It, and how Tim Curry basically gave us Pennywise. I was kind of in that mindset. I wasn't open-minded with it, to say the least. But when I watched it the second time and I had a little bit more of an open mind to it, it actually kind of grew on me. Like I started picking.
It grew on you?
It grew on me. But yeah, no, I mean, Bill Skarsgård did a really good job, but still
Curry.
Tim Curry.
So you've changed your mind since watching it for the first time?
Yes, yeah.
Were you aware that they were splitting the books into two parts? Because in the original book, it jumps back and forth constantly between the kids and the adults.
Yeah.
Were you aware of that going in?
No, actually, I was wondering, like, halfway through the movie, and it's, with it still being with the kids, I'm sitting there going, when are we gonna get the adults coming in? I was not expecting them to cut it off right at the end there, and basically come up with another chapter to it.
I kind of liked that. I think keeping
Yeah.
it linear like that
Mhm.
makes it much more, you take that childhood trauma that these kids went through and you live that with them rather than having be pulled out of the narrative by having it jump backwards and forwards in time.
And making it feel so rushed. I did
And-
like that. That's what also I really liked about it, was that it wasn't rushed, that they took their time with it, gave us a little bit more information to basically, grasp with the kids first, and then give us the adults later.
And also on a story level, it just makes it more focused, I think. But
I think they were able to do a lot more with it. I was kind of disappointed that we didn't get to talk about the turtle.
For those
and I don't know that reference.
For those who don't know, in the original novel, it is discovered that the entire universe was created by this giant turtle.
Wait, what?
Yes.
Huh?
This
There's
is
a
Stephen King
lot
at his
of-
most imaginative. His
This
coke,
is Stephen
wow.
King when he was coked out and high on something.
his cocaine-fueled imagination. In the novel, this giant, all-powerful turtle basically pukes up our universe, and that's how all of this was created. And Pennywise was
Huh.
basically the other end of the spectrum, basically this
Like the
evil
parasite.
force, the parasite.
Okay.
And then also something that I'm glad that they left out was the child orgy in the sewers.
Now that I know about, and that is definitely good that they left that
Okay,
out.
so basically at the end of the book, you end up with all the kids. They're lost in the sewers after defeating Pennywise the first time, and they can't find their way out. And so Beverly realizes that they need to re-solidify their bonds. So that's how they do it, and then they get out of the sewer.
I'm actually glad they did not put that in the film.
I am very, very glad.
Yeah, Stephen King had it.
Only he could have thought of something like that. Something
Yeah,
so
He's
twisted
a very
and disgusting.
interesting person.
Yeah.
Bill, if you'll come with me, you'll float too.
I mean, as I was saying, like I went in knowing next to nothing about it, and I think me having not read the book and not knowing much about it is part of why I was so surprised that people were very excited for this movie. So I went in basically completely cold, and yeah, it was really good.
You were
It was-
laughing at me that night.
Oh, she was like, she was scared out of her mind. That's right, we did go together, and
When did you scream? Or how many times did you scream?
Oh God.
at least 20.
Oh, see,
That's a lot. But
okay, that's a little bit exaggerated. But the thing is
I don't
that
remember how
usually I'm not scared when we go to movies. Usually I'm pretty
Oh,
chill.
Well,
and
yeah,
relaxed.
well, here's the thing.
But you had, we were having such a good time.
oh,
And
well, I was
like
unsettled
curled
too.
up on my
I-
chair with my popcorn like that.
I was unsettled too, but yeah, no, I thought it was very good because I felt like it was sort of, just because I know that like obviously this was sort of when stuff like Stranger Things and all that 80s nostalgia was kind of at its peak, and so it was interesting kind of going and seeing like, oh, this is where all these tropes really kind of originated, and it was good to kind of see like just kind of how those tropes very much fit into the concept of the story, and then yeah, Pennywise was genuinely terrifying. There was that scene, the first scene of the movie where he meets with Georgie, and
You didn't expect that, did you?
no, not the first scene of that movie where he tempts Georgie and he bites his arm off.
Okay, if we can we just like break down that opening scene, because for me
Yes.
it's one of the greatest opening scenes to a horror movie in recent years.
Oh, it was a really
Definitely,
good scene.
it definitely set the tone and said we're not going to be pulling any punches.
No, I was like, I was straight up like Ron Burgundy in that moment. I was like, well, that escalated quickly.
I
So-
remember you saying that.
So
That's what I did say exactly that.
yeah, it'd be very fun to watch this movie with somebody who's not familiar with the source material. But the opening scene, we get an introduction to Bill, the main character in this movie. He has a little brother, Georgie. Bill is sick in bed, and Georgie wants to go outside and play in the rain, and so Bill makes him a little paper boat. And there's a very creepy scene where the little brother Georgie goes down to the basement because he's afraid of the basement, and he sees these two glowing objects in the dark. And right off the bat, you're thinking, oh, is this Pennywise already? But it just turns out to be a product of his imagination, which ties into the overall theme of the story, which is conquering your worst fears. Because right off the bat, I mean, we can tell that Georgie is a very fearful child. And so then when he goes out into the rain, he's chasing his little paper boat, like to the sewer.
And it falls in the sewer.
And then meets Pennywise. We grow very concerned for him because we don't want to see this frightened, innocent little boy get devoured by this demonic clown.
And hold on, could you do your Pennywise impression for the scene?
Hiya, Georgie. Oh, what a nice boat. Do you want that? Well, the storm blew me away. Blew the whole circus away. Can you smell the circus, Georgie?
And see, here's the problem with that. I do not know. I know that it was a more innocent time and a more naive time, but I grew up in that era. And let me tell you, there was no kid I knew that would be like, oh yeah, clown, let's go hang out with him.
Let's have a conversation.
Let's have a conversation.
Okay,
Let's go ahead and there's a clown in the sewer. I'm gonna just go ahead and talk with him. No, the second we saw clowns back then, we ran screaming. It didn't matter.
To be fair, Ronald McDonald is one terrifying.
No, they stopped having Ronald McDonald at McDonald's and showing up there as a person because the kids were terrified.
First of all,
Because he's terrified.
First of all, like you said, it was a much simpler time. You know, kids weren't as protected and sheltered as they are today.
And we were also smarter.
No, he was young enough to still be innocent and naive. So when he sees a friendly clown in the sewer, you know, he isn't on the defense. He's taken in by his charm.
Did
It's
you
still
guys see
around that
friendly
era.
when you saw him?
No. But I mean, like, I see where Josh is coming from. There's still that time era where it's like, you know, you can go outside and talk to people and not have to worry about, oh, you're gonna get abducted and kidnapped. You're just thinking everybody's friendly, and for a little kid, it's, you know.
Yeah, like, I mean, if you're 10 years old, okay, then that is fair.
I don't know what 80s you guys are thinking about, but the nostalgia trips that they show nowadays where the 80s was very naive and stuff like that, it wasn't like that. We got stranger danger shoved down our throats. They would have the kids come into the classroom if there was somebody in a van trying to give candy. No, we were educated on that stuff.
You can also argue that this is just the world the movie takes place in.
Yes.
Yes.
So,
but then Derry's kind of crazy anyways, because this has been happening over and over and over, and all these abuses have been happening, and kids have been disappearing, and not only that, but you also have bullies and adults that are, I mean, if you read the book, you know that some of these adults are just as evil as can be, and nobody sees anything, nobody does anything. So you might just say, you know what, that's Derry for you.
So this is when we get our first glimpse of Bill Skarsgård's Pennywise, and as you can probably tell by my shirt, I'm a Skarsgård fan. I don't want to get into a whole Skarsgård versus Curry debate. That's for a whole other video, but I will just say the reason I think Bill Skarsgård is a better Pennywise is because I completely buy him as this otherworldly being. I know the point is to come across as a clown, but I still think there should be a hint of something just off about this character. Bill Skarsgård captured that in spades, particularly in this sewer sequence where he's trying to lure this child in. You know, he's pretending to be this friendly character, but he's actually not. And when he finally does attack, I mean, it's downright terrifying. And the rest of the movie, he has like this presence and like this way of moving. You know, it's very
alien-like.
Very alien-like, and that's something that I thought Tim Curry never captured in the miniseries. And that's just my opinion. I know that you two are Team Curry.
Definitely.
You know, just look at Kim's shirt. She's rocking that Tim Curry shirt. But yeah, those are my reasons. And in this opening scene, it's nearly flawless except for one shot. There's one shot in this sewer sequence that I do not like, and I thought it could have been a ton better. It's the shot where Pennywise basically bites down on Georgie's arm. That CGI head is just so fake. and just so unrealistic looking.
Yeah.
Very cartoonish. It didn't take me out of the scene, but man, that single shot, if it weren't for that, it would have been a perfect sequence.
It was really well done.
It would, again, definitely set the tone very well. I'm like, first scene of the movie, a 5-year-old boy gets his arm bitten off.
And then gets dragged into the sewers and eaten.
And they didn't really hold back on it like the
No.
original. They were like, we're going to show you the arm gone and everything.
We're gonna
you know?
see him screaming and crawling away. We're gonna see that
No,
there are
like,
a couple
it
of
is
adults
graphic. It is.
on the porch that could help him, and all they do is get up and walk in and to their houses and shut the door, leaving him there, knowing what's gonna happen. No, they definitely brought out the brutality of what was gonna be going on.
Mm-hmm. So after
But
that,
it didn't let up.
So after that fun opening scene, we're introduced to the rest of the cast, and I just have to say that every child actor in this movie is magnificent. You have
honestly.
Finn Wolfhard, one of the coolest names ever, as Reggie Tozier, the class clown of the group. You have Jaden, what's his name?
Jaden Lieberhauer, I think, is his name.
Jaden Lieberhauer as Bill, the leader of the group.
And this was great because this was very refreshing because he was in a movie earlier that year called Book of Henry, which is one of the most shockingly awful movies of the last decade. It's not his fault. He played a character that Daniel Day-Lewis could not have sold the character of Henry. So it was nice to see him and be really good in this movie. I'm like, okay, he is a genuinely really good actor. Again, Book of Henry wasn't his fault, but nonetheless.
Book of Henry was a real horror movie.
Yeah. No, that movie is genuinely unsettling.
You also have Jack Dylan Grazer as the fast-talking, hypochondriac Eddie. Probably my favorite character in the movie. I think he's hilarious. He has some of the best lines, like how they're searching for medicine or something like that. And one of the characters has a line. He's like, "Hey, like, you know, are you keeping birth pills in here?" And Eddie says, "Yeah, I'm saving them for your sister."
I just love those characters together. They just
the kids have great.
They play off each other
Yeah.
very, very well. Like I love that scene. Around that same scene where with the pills, where they go downstairs and he has to kiss his mom goodbye, and he's like, "Oh, I want a kiss too."
All the kid actors do tremendous jobs bringing
Yeah.
these characters to life, and they have tremendous chemistry. And what this movie does really well is it's not just about Pennywise threatening these kids. These kids go through some very realistic, real-life horrors.
Yeah.
There's the overprotective mother. There's the psychotic school bully who uses a knife. There's the pedophile pharmacist who starts hitting on Beverly.
Oh, there's the
And then there's her father.
And
Yeah,
Beverly's
let's-
father,
let's
who is...
talk about the abuse that actually happens to her.
Yeah.
That's her trauma is very much rooted in that, and you can see that with the scene where the blood starts coming out of the faucet and goes
Yeah.
everywhere and stuff like that. It's
Which kind of
really-
just sums up what you were saying. Like all these adults are just as bad as Pennywise, if not worse.
And honestly, the real world sequences are almost as horrifying as the actual horror sequences. Like when Beverly confronts her father for the first time and he's like stroking her hair, calling her his little girl. It's very unnerving and sick.
It is.
That was one of the most
And
unsettling parts to me. To
With
be
that,
honest.
also, you I kind of see the adults in that as, like you were saying, worse villains, because you expect Pennywise to be the bad guy. He is the bad guy. He's meant to prey on these children. That's his niche, his lot in nature. These parents are supposed to protect and care for their kids.
And they don't do
Bill's-
jack shit.
Bill's parents, he's mourning the loss of his brother, and all they keep telling him to do is get over it. Beverly's pedophile father, the dad that has a painting that obviously terrifies his son, and yet all he can do is be like, "Oh, be a man about it." The mom who is so desperate to keep her son because I guess her husband left her, that she makes him into a hypochondriac and steals whatever independence she can from him.
And then you can't forget Henry's father as well, being this alcoholic and drunk. So like even with him being a bully, he's he's still got
He's still got his own.
issues.
The
yeah.
cycle of abuse, pretty much,
Mhm.
is what it all comes back to.
And I thought that was a really good point, Brian. It is kind of about the cycle of abuse when you think about it. Pennywise comes back, it's a cycle.
Yeah,
And this cycle keeps happening.
absolutely.
You have to step up to your fears, face it, confront it, and defeat it in order to break the cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And the scenes where Pennywise is attacking these kids individually are pretty well done.
Yeah, I think the funniest one was where he I forget which character was there, but it's in the trailer, and pretty much everybody has seen this scene. Is when he's sitting there, he has the blood all around his mouth, and he just waves the severed arm.
Oh my god.
Oh.
It's so adorable.
You're talking about what's his name?
Oh man.
I know who was in the scene with it. It was I think it was his name.
It's okay. It was,
Oh
but
my
that
God.
scene,
I do.
that scene stuck with me because I think the things that made it scary for me was that he thought all of this was funny.
Mm-hmm.
This was fun for him. This was a game for him. This was not horrifying for him. I mean, he was like a little boy pulling the wings off of a fly or using a magnifying glass to burn ants.
If I can talk about my favorite jump scare. So set up. You have all the kids together in this garage. They're looking at these projections on the wall. They're looking at these maps of Derry, and all of a sudden,
Oh,
the projector becomes possessed, and you start seeing these random images flash on the wall. And then you see, Bill's mother, her, hair's in her face, and then she gradually turns into Pennywise. And then they finally knock the projector onto the floor, but it still keeps going. And every time the projector, turns off, the screen's completely black. And then there's one point where the projector turns on, and you don't see Pennywise on the wall. Where the hell is he? And
so
then
you kind of relax a little bit.
so you relax a little bit, but then in the very next shot, Pennywise just jumps out of the wall like a 3D pop-up book. I screamed so loudly in the theater, it was embarrassing.
I did too. I was so scared at that point. It was great.
I saw something.
The clown. Yeah, I saw him too. We'll float too.
What happens when another Georgie goes missing?
We'll float
Or one of us?
too. We'll float too.
Are you just gonna pretend it isn't happening like everyone else in this town?
Now we can move on to some of the problems that we each have in this movie. If I can just get it off of my chest, I will say I'm not entirely a fan of the climax where they all band together to rescue Beverly from the sewer, and basically what it comes down to is a fist fight between them and Pennywise, where they all get together, they're alone in Pennywise's lair. He's trying to persuade them to give him Bill so that they can escape with their lives, but Finn Wolfhard grabs a baseball bat and just starts beating the shit out of this clown, and they all do the same. There's some really terrible CGI in this, like when he turns into a mummy and tries to ensnare Ben. There's a moment where he has arms just pop out of his mouth, and just the fact that it ends with them just beating the shit out of him, and that's the resolution to this movie. I wasn't entirely a fan of it. It's much more nuanced and complex in the book, which hopefully they'll do in the next movie. But that was my biggest problem with the movie. That and some of the spotty CGI here and there. Those are my two big problems with the movie. Thor?
CGI was definitely a problem, but some of the things that they were trying to do, you couldn't have done with practical effects. I didn't mind the climax so much because when you face your fears, there's all this anger and rage over having that fear, over facing it. You finally let the fear go, and you have the anger over the abuse, over the hurt. And that is just lashing out. When you lash out like that, it can be very, very primal. So I didn't have that much of a problem with the climax. I figured, I was cheering when they pulled out that bat, started going at him. I was like, hell yeah, do it. So I can see why they wanted that kind of visceral found weapons type of ending. I think the CGI during that was terrible. The scene that I had a problem with, which hopefully they'll do better, I think that a lot of the problems that I have between with the CGI stuff, but the time when he came out of the refrigerator.
Really?
I liked it, but I didn't think it was very well done.
Really?
I thought the Jangly Man in Scary Stories was better.
You're talking about
Because
the part
the thing
where
is
he,
that
Pennywise unravels and gets out of the refrigerator?
That could have been done, well, depending on how they shot it, that could have been done practically and it would have been better because the Scary Stories did it practically.
If I read it correctly, I think part of it was practical. I think Bill Skarsgård actually learned how to contort his body, and then there were some CGI touch-ups, obviously, but
I thought
there
it
was
was
still an actor
CGI.
there.
I thought that the whole thing was CGI, honestly. I didn't think that maybe is the way that I interpreted it. But
It was like most of his body, I think. There were some CGI touch-ups there, but as far as I know, like, there was an actor there.
it's just an opinion. I thought that the Jangly Man in
Scary Stories.
Scary Stories had a better effect for the same kind of thing.
And I'm sorry, if I could bring up one more thing I just thought of, and then we'll get into the rest of your guys' problems. The tone was a little inconsistent at times. I mean, there are some intentionally funny scenes in this movie, particularly with Finn Wolfhard and Eddie. But there's also a scene out of the book where they get into a rock fight with the bullies, and they utilize slow motion and heavy metal rock music, and it was something out of like a Nickelodeon special, and I don't know, I just thought it was a bit too much.
I thought they were just trying to be nostalgic with it. Here are the losers, they finally find their power. I didn't have too much of a problem with a lot of things in this movie. I thought it was very well done. I was taking it easy on it because I enjoyed it so much. It brought me back to a time when being scared could be fun.
Kim, did you have any problems?
I think you covered what my problems was with the CGI, and basically it could have been better. I guess the scene in the opening, I mean, it was really good. It got you into it. You're feeling creepy, creeped out by the fact that, Pennywise is gonna take Georgie. But like when he bites down on him, it was just
That was
so
pretty
bad. It was like, oh, you guys could have done so much better with that. But mostly it's just like, to me it was the CGI, and they could have done a little bit better with this.
Brian?
Yeah, more or less what you guys said. I'll say, me personally, this is more like a personal thing. I tend to not really be a fan of like the bully trope.
Okay.
Just because oftentimes I feel like those characters are just a little bit too stock. And granted, I recognize that this was the one that kind of
Stephen King did a
kickstarted
lot
that
of
trope a
bully
little
stuff.
bit, and as such, I think it's better done than a lot of cases because you kind of see that he himself is a victim of abuse. But there's a couple moments here and there where I feel like they go a little overboard with it, and then the main thing is I hate to nitpick, but yeah, some of the CGI moments I felt like were a bit overused and just kind of took me out of it.
If we stick together, we'll win.
So, thankfully, there wasn't much clowning around in this review. I think we each expressed our thoughts on the movie eloquently. Brian, you did mention something to me earlier, though. You said that you think Pennywise is
daddy.
No.
He's a thick daddy.
No.
Okay, I take it back. What I said about no clowning around because Brian just freaking ruined it. So yeah, we're very excited to see It Chapter 2 this week.
Choke me, Pennywise.
I'm sure.
Sorry, stop.
Ignore him. Sorry.
I'm sure we're each going to have a lot of thoughts on It Chapter 2. We're very excited to talk about it. As far as expectations, I just hope that the adults have the same magnetic chemistry as the kids. We have some really big names like Jessica Chastain and Bill Hader.
Love Bill Hader.
Which, when we were talking about who we'd want to be in the movie as the adults, Jessica Chastain and Bill Hader were two of our picks.
That's true.
When we came up with our perfect list. Of course, we wanted Jerry O'Connell in it too. Not for any kind of serious thing, but just because we were like, it would be fun to
Jerry
have that
O'Connell
total.
from Kangaroo Jack.
Well,
Yeah,
Jerry,
well, he was in Stand By Me.
Stand By Me.
True.
From one Stephen King adaptation to another Stephen King adaptation.
Yeah, just, even if it was like a Stan Lee cameo, we were like, that would be fun.
I think if they made it back in the 80s, I think Jerry O'Connell, being the little chubby kid he was, I think he probably would have played Ben.
He's not a chubby kid now.
So anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining us in our review of It. If you like this, be sure to subscribe to our channel, Round the Clock Frights, for more horrific content. And as always, have a very scary night. Watch out for clowns in the sewer. They tend to pop up every now and then. And
Every 27 years.
Every 27 years. And we will see you next time.